Well, hello. I'm in South Dakota, just heading out of Spearfish Canyon, where I'm going to join Highway 85 and head north. As I head north, I'm going to hit the city of Lead, and it'll be lots of fun. I enjoy driving this road. This exact same road runs right through my town, but I guarantee my town doesn't look like this. So what I wanted to look at today is, why don't we take self-help advice? And that seemed like a good one because I am kind of a self-help junkie. I enjoy just reading that stuff. I enjoy YouTube channels about it. It's just something that's very interesting to me. So I wanted to look at it. Maybe not as formally as I do with some videos. This is not particularly well researched, but I think it's interesting regardless. So this idea came from me. I was watching a video influencer's video on finding a YouTube/life balance. And as I watched the video, it's well done. They're professional. They do know what they're talking about. But I just thought, I know that already. It's basically the same advice you get for finding a work-life balance. And it got me thinking. A lot of this self-help stuff is just common sense. The details may differ, sometimes there's a system and so on, but it's largely the same. The trouble is we just don't listen to it. Years ago, I got into reading Don Aslett. He wrote a series of books called Clutter's Last Stand and several lookalikes. And basically what the books were about was how to declutter. Now, he wasn't getting into serious hoarding situations, although that's the extreme form of clutter. He just decluttering, and when I look around my living room right now, I shouldn't be recording this video. I should be decluttering because it's gotten ahead of me during this busy time of school. But filming this video is one of my mental health breaks and one of my excuses not to do it. So there you go. And those are all things that he covers. And so I know how to declutter. I just don't always do it. Now, this house will look good come June. Just right now it doesn't. I really enjoy and I feel horrible admitting this because I think in some ways this is a very exploitive show, but I've always enjoyed the show Hoarders. I enjoy the show My 600-Pound Life. Now, I don't watch TV, but I do have Amazon, and I have to admit that I pay to watch those on Amazon Prime. And for a long time, I couldn't figure out why. And I'll admit, part of it is book research. It's just that human nature thing. Yes, it deals with a common topic, obesity or hoarding or something. But the larger thing, what you're seeing are humans and how they act and how they react. And so I find those just very interesting. When you look for books on weight loss, what are they going to say? Eat less, exercise more. The details may vary, but that's basically what they're about. Reduce your caloric intake, increase your caloric outtake. That sounds wrong to me. I'm not writing a script, I just have an outline. Organization is a big thing for me. I love staying in a good motel room where everything is neat. There's no stuff out. Everything is nicely put away. And you're like, wow. Nothing on any horizontal surfaces except maybe one or two tastefully chosen items like a TV or, that's about it. I love that. I would love for my house to look like that, but I know it never will. But what's the deal there? Well, first of all, less stuff because it's a motel room, so there's nothing personal in there. But another one is just putting stuff away, having a home for everything. All advice we know. Why am I not following it? So I'm going to start with a few personal impressions, then I'm going to get into the research, and I'll be honest. When I get to the research part, yes, I have footnotes down below. You saw a couple of them referenced already. But when I started putting together the research part of this video, it got so random and disorganized that I shouldn't say random, but I got so disorganized between who said what and where I got what that I just decided I'm just going to leave the list of links down below and you can figure it out. Which, that's lazy, but it's because I didn't follow my system where I usually start with index cards and put this stuff on index cards and then I can put it in my notebook in an organized fashion. I didn't do that. Which, again, would be a perfect example of the topic of this video. So, quick side note before I dive into the video proper. I had planned, I went down to Leeds, South Dakota on Easter 2018. I stayed the night there. I spent Easter Sunday exploring Leeds on foot. Easter Monday, I got up, I drove back to Spearfish, got an oil change because I couldn't find a place that did it in Leeds, although I'm sure there is one. And then I drove back to Leeds. I really wanted to work Spearfish Canyon in and this part of the drive. And I got nervous when I got to Leeds. And instead of continuing on to Rapid City, which was part 2 of my Monday plans, I hightailed it home. You'll see the beginnings of it in this video. But my God, was that the right plan? Because South Dakota got socked with snow. I got socked with snow on the way home, but I got the beginnings of the storm. I didn't get the end of it. And wow, so glad I decided to go home. So anyway, so I thought I would start with a few personal impressions. One of the things I know I am guilty of, and I know a lot of people are guilty of this, let's not just limit it to one person, is we are looking for that magical bullet, that savior, that who's going to save me, this magical piece of advice that, now it is all clear to me. This is the one thing I have not been doing. Oh, Don Aslett was right. Just throw things out if you don't use them. How could I have not known that? Well, I mean, maybe you could run into that magical bullet. Usually it's common sense you just haven't been using. I remember I used to have a lot of trouble with classroom management. Like arguing with students and, shouting at me and stuff. And one of the pieces of advice I got my very first year teaching from one of the older teachers there was never wrestle with a pig. The pig just gets dirty, or you just get dirty and the pig enjoys it. Which is kind of mean, but, what she was saying is never argue with a fool because they'll beat you with experience. So that's what I was doing. Students weren't arguing with me looking for, reasoning. Sometimes they're just bored. They wanted to pass the time. It's an entertaining way to pass the time. Argue with the teacher, then you're not doing anything. And you get to go away and be all self-righteous and like, well, that teacher, he just don't like me. He's a real jerk. I hear it in the hallways. Kids planning, let's see if we can piss this teacher off. Because then they know they won't have to do anything. It's common sense, really. It just was an effort at first for me to follow that. Now I've gotten a lot better at saying, well, I'd be happy to discuss that with you later. Later never comes. Sometimes it's laziness. Maybe you have an initial investment in a particular way of doing things, so it's very hard to change. And you just can't see that long-term gain. Yeah. Eat less, exercise more. It'd be nice to be svelte and skinny. I'm hardly obese, but I'm certainly not skinny anymore. I'd like to go back to being skinny. But there's that investment of you have to reduce your calories. You have to reduce that fast food. You have to reduce that alcohol. I actually don't drink soft drinks, so that's not a problem. Actually, I don't really like sweets either, so that's not a problem either. But anyway, you're reducing the caloric intake, where at the moment it's just like, but it tastes good. So, okay, up your physical activity even more. Well, I have a knee that turns into a balloon when I run, which is an excuse, because I can walk, bike ride, and so on. And I have been reading about how much certain types of yard work reduce your calories. So maybe, much as I hate working on the yard, maybe I just need to do more yard work. But, you know, it's laziness. It's a lot easier to just sit and read a book or watch a YouTube video, or if you're into video games, play video games. Sometimes it's a blame thing. I'm fine. It's everybody else that's a problem. It's those darn kids won't listen to me. It's that McDonald's keeps shoving calories in my face. Oh, there's no McDonald's where I live? Oops, can't use that excuse. Sometimes it's just too much change at once. You know, it's easy to make a few changes at a time. It's hard to make a lot of them. Sometimes, you know, it really is a lack of time or a perceived lack of time to make the changes. Sometimes you just blame others or find excuses. You know, sometimes it's just you don't realize the amount of sacrifice needed. By the way, we're coming into Lead, South Dakota, pleasant town of about 3,000 people. I have a Pens in Use, which sort of walks around Lead. I'll try to remember to put a link down in my video description. I know there isn't one there now. But this summer, I'm planning to come back to Lead and really explore it on foot. There's a lot there to see. Also, interesting museum and an interesting gold mine and a very interesting history. And a fascinating main street, which, as it turned out, once I started exploring on foot, didn't have nearly as many interesting businesses on it as I was hoping it would, or places to eat. You can see all that in my Pens in Use video. So I'm going to delve now into the research that I did. And one of the things, and I'm not saying that this is true, I'm just saying this is what I couldn't find. I couldn't find very many peer-reviewed studies. I don't really know what to say about that. I just, didn't find them. I also found, speaking for myself, not all ideas actually work. Years ago, I don't know, I was still a fairly new teacher, but nowadays I accumulate lesson ideas and so on electronically. I put them on Evernote, which I need to do a video on that one of these days. But I accumulate them electronically. They don't take up much space. I can search them by keywords and such. But when I started teaching, I think I've mentioned I did not have the internet in my classroom. I didn't even have a computer. So I accumulated a lot of stuff on paper, and I had quite the amazing number of files. And I found, and I'm not going to name it and shame it, but I found a book with a wonderful file system about how to code each single item that you file and how to be able to find it quickly, which does work great for a paper filing system. But the trade-off is you have to spend the time to actually do it. I always struggled to remember what my codes were, what number to use, and so on. Well, that failed. Sometimes your ideas are just ridiculous. Now, this whole notion of an alpha male, well, what the hell is that? What does it mean? Does it even matter? Sometimes they're just not realistic, or they're very extreme. They don't take into account human weakness. Sometimes a big blow comes to your plans, you end up unemployed. And then there's that whole emotional, finding that balance. Be true to yourself. Sometimes your advice that you've found just is not situation specific. So, those are all reasons sometimes self-help advice fails. Now, what I did here is I pulled into a museum in Lead. This is associated with the gold mine and now Sanford Research Labs. I plan to make a revisit. They have a lot more tours and such going on. I just haven't been able to get down there again. The weekends I wanted to, there's always something going on here and I can't get away. But soon school will be out and I will be able to get down there, so I'm excited about that. And yes, I just really need to get out. What's that I just heard you say? Physician, heal thyself. Yeah, I know, making excuses. Sometimes I think this isn't as well researched or acknowledged as much as it should be. Sometimes we have some personal limitations. There may be a personal history. I'm speaking anecdotally, of course, but I have found that people who grew up during the Great Depression really have trouble throwing things away. Something like the Great Depression tends to have a real impact on the way you think and on the way you view things, and on the way you view the future. And you think, well, yeah, right now maybe I could get that replacement part, but in the future, will I be able to? It's good to have this, just in case. I know a man who has all around his home vehicles, every vehicle he's ever owned. Luckily he lives in the country, not in town, so people don't have to look at it. But every vehicle he's ever owned, just in case he needs a part. And once in a while he will crow about, yeah, so glad I saved that 69 Pontiac. Didn't know I'd need that Wazamahootsit out of it. Yay, good for you, buddy. There's that whole history thing going on. When you see a hoarder or even just a clutterer, sometimes there's more to it than you think. Sometimes they are barely keeping their head above water with work and all their other obligations. Maybe there's a family history. A lot you just don't know. Sometimes we're dealing with family and friends, and I will tell you what I have seen. Family and friends like to keep you in your place. They'll say they want you to improve, but really, a lot of them like you to be the way you are, because then they feel better than you. They'll never admit that even to themselves. But, they're the people that, you say you're going to keep your desk neat, but we know it'll go back to the way it was. Employment can do a lot. And just pride. Sometimes you can be too proud to change the way you do things because it's like admitting failure or admitting that you're wrong. Sometimes you think so low of yourself that you just, I'm not worth it. Well, you are. I would suggest, and I need to listen to this too, yes, the self-help is a good reminder. This is what you should do. Because we do need those reminders. That's why the self-help industry is so good. But I've just told you why it's become so big. What we need to do is start doing that action instead of just watching. Okay, you need to save money. Do that budget. Take those little steps. Maybe start easy. Just record every time you spend money, no matter how much the amount. Maybe cut that one dessert thing. Maybe cook that one more meal at home instead of eating fast food or pre-made food. Maybe just start taking that little walk. Maybe walk instead of driving when you can. Maybe make those contacts to those people instead of waiting to do it. Nothing comes to those who wait. You have to go out and grab them. And that can be really, really difficult, especially if you lack the social skills like I do to really go out and grab things. This whole YouTube thing, I had gotten the idea several years before I started doing the pen review thing, that I should start a YouTube channel and do pen reviews. I even filmed a few, but I never published them. It took Stephen Brown's video that inspired me, and the unique circumstance that I had a unique pen in my hands to finally do one. And it has been a struggle to keep doing them at times. Now, I don't really struggle now, except once in a while with time. If you look back a few weeks, you will notice a week with a missing review, but it's a time thing. But overall, doing it got me there. Thinking about it, thinking about what I should do, all the things that could go wrong just crippled me. All the things that were wrong crippled me. So I finally just did it with an iPad that didn't even have that great of a camera because it's an old iPad. You just got to get out there and do it. And that is so hard. I say that as a self-help thing, knowing that that's often the biggest thing. You have a house that's a mess, And you think, oh my God, where do I even start? And it's easier just to close your eyes to it. We'll start with that one shelf, that one table, that one couch. And that would be another piece of advice that I don't see written here on this research about starting small, but the main thing is to be moving and acting. Another thing that can get in our way, honestly, is sometimes, and I am not going to give an example here, but sometimes your self-help people can be hypocrites. So you're telling me to lose weight there, chubby. Oh, you're telling me about, how I need to live a more godly life, even as you are involved in all these scandals. And sometimes we find big talkers are exactly that. Full of advice, but not able to follow it themselves. Sometimes self-help is actually bad. I intentionally used the word there, chubby. Sometimes the self-help is actually insulting and demeaning, using inferiority and shame. That actually can paralyze your action. Now, denial isn't any good either, but, little caution there. I can be really good at negative self-talk, and I have to fight myself doing it. This spring I was really close to a major change in my life, mostly because of negative self-talk. Major employment change in my life because of negative self-talk. Sometimes self-help is actually avoiding the real problem. Sometimes you just set up unrealistic expectations. I hear about different weights and I think, wow, I remember when I was a teenager and weighed that. Well, I'm not going to weigh that. I am 6'3". If I get down to 150 pounds, I've got a health problem. I'm too skinny. Got to be realistic. Do it by June. Oh, it's May 9th today. Not going to happen. Sometimes your self-help is not scientific. A lot of dietary advice especially is guilty of that, where it's not actually well researched and ends up with dietary issues that cause physical harm to your body. Sometimes there's contradictions in it. Sometimes you just don't know what actually makes you happy. Maybe you're okay with a couple of pounds. I mean, too many pounds, obviously, no. But, a couple of pounds. You've just decided for yourself you need to be skinny, where normal is perfectly good. Maybe a little bit of clutter in my house, to use one that really affects me, is okay. It's just a lot that's bad. And then some of the other reasons why self-help doesn't work. Sometimes you just have this need for control. And you just don't want to take that other advice. Sometimes your self-help isn't about yourself. Because remember, self-help is self-help. It's about your need to impress others. Well, if my goal in having a nice, clean house is to impress others, I don't have nearly the buy-in as if the goal is to give myself a nice environment to come home from work in. This is supposed to be my refuge, my shelter from the realities of the outside world, instead of a reflection of how I'm dealing with them. So maybe think about myself and accept that maybe a couple of things laying around are perfectly fine because, hey, I'm going to use it tomorrow. Why put it away? Sometimes we're just really resistant to change. We don't like change. Nobody does. Some of us resist it more than others, but it takes practice to overcome a habit. If your habit is, I'll put it away later, and later never comes. Put it away now. Now, be realistic. Let's be honest, sometimes you just can't. It is what it is. Too busy doing other things, can't put it away now, but maybe I need to put it away before I go home. Sometimes we're guilty of blame. If the darn kids have put their stuff away, and this house would look good if the darn kids have put their stuff away. My husband, my wife, those are all easy things to blame. Well, one of the big breakthroughs for me in classroom management was I can't really control what the kids do, but I can control what I do, how I react and how I handle situations. And that simple change in philosophy made a big difference in my classroom environment. And every year I find new things that I need to be doing and paying attention to. So maybe by the time I retire, I'll be a good teacher. Who knows? And what did I just do? I wasn't even trying to do it. I was just making a joke. But self-defeating talk. I just said I'm a bad teacher. Did you hear that? That is self-defeating talk. Now, a little realism is a good thing. Realism would be, I need to do this differently. Like back at the beginning, don't argue with kids. But that whole, you're just so fat. You're such a slob. Nobody likes looking at you. You're so ugly. Oh, your classroom's a mess. Oh, your house is a mess. That's useless. That's not being realistic. That's just self-defeating. Instead, I should pick that up. I should stop that behavior that I don't like. I should, whatever it is. Sometimes we end up confused and lost. See, that was a sign about snow coming. Sometimes we end up confused and lost because we have an unrealistic view of how things work. We think about talent. Some people are just naturally talented versus hard work. When Michael Jordan looks amazing out there on the basketball court, and I think I might be giving away my age there, that's not because of natural talent. Back when he was in high school, they didn't even think he was that talented. Yes, he has some genetic advantages. But the biggest single piece, long before any genetic advantages kicked in, was the work. Michael Phelps might be a more recent example. Yes, he's got some weird genetic things that help him be a better swimmer. But the biggest one is the amount of time he spends swimming and working out. When I go to a high school basketball game, and I go to a lot of them because I teach in a high school and I take photographs for the local paper, I see the younger kids. What are they doing? They watching the game? No, they're hanging with their friends, they're on their cell phones, going to get a snack at the snack bar. They're not spending their time studying the game, and yet they all think they're the next Michael Jordan. They won't be, because they're not putting in the sacrifice. They're not putting in the time when it would be more fun to talk to your friends and be on your cell phone. And instead, you're there paying attention to the game. How did that play go? Why did that play fail? Why did that one succeed? What did this athlete do differently? And at the same time, that time off when the games aren't going on, where you're playing basketball, where you're practicing making shots, where you're practicing running with the ball, all those different things that nobody wants to do because they just automatically want to be great. Well, to be great takes hard work. And that's one of the things I've realized with teaching is I can't just wander into class and I know this stuff, I've been through college. I got to spend a lot of time at home prepping lessons. After a lesson, I need to look at, that was a failure. Why'd that fail? That went well. Why did that go well? And that is not easy to do. Because sometimes you have to take an objective look at yourself. None of us like doing that. Because often we don't like what we see when we're honest. And again, don't get into that negative self-talk. Be honest, both about what you're doing well and what you're doing badly. And yeah, here's another one, effort and blame. I told you at the beginning of this, I like that show Hoarders, even though it's exploitive. I like that show 600 Pound Life, even though it's exploitive. And what is interesting to me, one of the things, because there's a lot that's interesting, there's a lot of family dynamics and so on, there's just so much there. But one of the things that's interesting to me is the effort. I could stand to lose 20 or 30 pounds. Well, I'm a 42-year-old man who's reasonably healthy. I could get that off very easily. It's not that hard for me. I can walk faster. Not sure about the running part, but I'm going to try. I can ride bike. I can do physical things. And I live alone, so I don't have anybody enabling my dysfunctional lifestyle. It's all me enabling myself. Some of these people actually have someone in their life that's encouraging their bad habits. Sometimes you have people, that are bringing home the awful food. And yes, those enablers will say, well, she gets so upset if I don't bring home the pizza and the gravy and all the junk food that she likes. And yet, you could say, well, get up off your ass and go buy it yourself. And, yep, some of them do. That's true. But then I see others who, yes, they have that dysfunctional, but they work at it. And they end up with success. Usually some failure to go along with it because, again, it's really hard to change a habit. But they get there. The ones who usually fail and fail again and never succeed tend to be the ones who are unable to do anything but blame others. They blame the doctor because what he expects them to do is just unrealistic. They blame the people around them. They blame. And they never look at themselves. The people who are able to change are usually able to look at themselves. And I'm sorry, you don't get to be 600 pounds by accident. You share some of the blame. You don't get to be a hoarder by accident. You share some of the blame. Now, yes, conditions, mental illness, whatever, put you in that situation. But you didn't get there by accident. But I do know that mental illness and so on do make it very difficult or even impossible to ask for that help or even know you need that help. And then you just get so sunk into it that you just really have no idea what to do. I remember an episode of Hoarders where this guy had rats. I'm not grossed out usually, but there were so many rats in his house it gave me the heebie-jeebies. And they were causing serious structural damage to his home because he had so many of them. So they did a follow-up on him. Those are often the most interesting because then you get to see who's succeeding and who isn't. And where is the realistic balance type thing? And he was talking fondly about his memories of the sound of all their little feet sounding like running water. He still missed them. But yet he'd overcome that. He was a success story. And I'll throw one other here. Temperance and empathy. I don't know why I have this under the category of what doesn't work. But they always say all things in moderation. Sometimes you just need to find that happy place. Maybe a few pounds are okay. A lot of pounds, too many. Maybe a little bit of stuff out's okay. Oh, that junk that I should just take out to the trash can, not okay. You need to find your happy place and worry a little bit less about what other people think. And at the same time, I say this as I do a self-help rant where I've been giving advice, have a little bit of empathy for other people in the situation they're in. You don't know what's going on at home. And I actually used that line recently to a student because this student was criticizing how another student, who thankfully was not in the room, always dressed. And I just made that point that you don't know what this student's life is. You do not know what goes on at home. Actually talking to the head cook in the cafeteria today, and she said something really similar about, there's no bad kids, but there's a lot of kids that come from really bad situations and just don't know any better. And that's true. And what's sad is a lot of these same kids are going to grow up to be adults. And as much as I may try, as in my profession, to train them to be those adults, by the time I get them in high school, it's often too late. But I'll tell you something else for free. This is now off my outline and I am free scripting it. When you look at people who came from a really bad situation and yet turned out successful, it's usually because there was some adult in their life that took an interest in them. It might have been a teacher, it might have been an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, it might have been a neighbor, it might have been a preacher. I don't know who it was, but it was somebody that took an interest in them and took the time to say, hey, there's a better way. And was also willing to hold them accountable when they would fail. And show them that better way. I find it upsetting when you have a kid who thinks it's normal that dad bought a bunch of liquor, so that's why they're hungry and they can't get lunch because dad spent it all on liquor. It's just, no, that's not all right. That is not normal. And it's just so sad that we have kids growing up thinking that's normal. And what's really sad are the ones that I don't hear from that nobody can do anything to help because we don't know that's what's going on in their house. And so I say again, have a little bit of empathy for people. I'm sorry, I really just needed to walk away from the microphone for a few minutes there. I'll admit one of my own personal weaknesses. When I see a kid that has it all, criticizing kids who are not fortunate, who don't have it all, for not having those advantages that they didn't earn anyway because it's their parents. But I'll tell you what I've realized over time. Those kids that seem to have it all, and yet are like that, don't necessarily have it all. That entitled mindset isn't something they came up with on their own. That came from home. So they're ending up just as handicapped, maybe in a different way, by their parents as these other kids. That lack of empathy can give you advantages, can get you into positions of authority and power, and yet it can also be your undoing. And you realize when you look at kids that way that, even these ones you want to call an entitled little snot really didn't get a fair deal because they missed out on that empathy. They missed out on those human things that make us human. And then maybe you start to feel a little sorry for them. And maybe you hope that instead of dealing with them in anger, maybe a reasoned conversation about, hey, here's what you're missing. Here's the side of the story you don't get. Might turn them around. I don't know. I got off the topic there. I'm in Sturgis now. I'm going in to eat gross fast food because nowhere in Lead was open and it was too early in Deadwood. So, yeah, I didn't enjoy it, but I did enjoy this trip even though it was cut short. And I'll pick this up next week. I'm not 100% sure what the topic will be, but I know there's going to be one. I've got 3 or 4 floating around. And yeah, just think of me eating gross food at this fast food place. So luckily, I'm eating good right now because I have a good supper. So thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.